Welcome to this Educast, best practices during today's pandemic. We're focusing on managing the collaboration and contact center experience. I'm Gary Auden, and with me today is Tim Armstrong, Vice President, Product Management at Nectar. And what we're going to cover today are mainly management subjects, dashboards and reporting, contact center monitoring, and we're going to focus on things such as the impact on the UC infrastructure and trouble spots that we may find. How do we find those trouble spots? And talk about platforms, network, and endpoints. So let's start off, Tim. Businesses are trying to compensate for the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some collaboration services have experienced over 62% growth in their usage. Contact centers have experienced an increase in call volume from their clients. What have you seen?
Well, thank you, Gary. It's good to be with you as always again today, and especially talking about this important topic at this important time. The way in which our business has changed in the last 3 or 4 weeks has been quite remarkable, and the conversations that our customers are wanting to have in the last 3 or 4 weeks is really obviously been very impacted by global events. The two primary things that we see is a spike in remote users, and this is something that every company is dealing with in their own way, and we'll talk about that, I think, as we go through today. But certainly remote users, as here in the U.S., various state governors have issued work from home or stay at home initiatives, and then other organizations have just taken it upon themselves to have their workforce distributed and working from home. So that obviously has massive implications on the collaboration and contact center space. The second thing that we're seeing is that a lot of our enterprise customers are seeing dramatic increases in their call volume and traffic. So you have a little bit of this, both things are happening at once. They've got people that can't be sitting in physical contact centers at the same time that they're seeing traffic peak as in terms of call volume in.
Now, one of the points that I think is really important is people think, well, keeping this going is enough, but I think quality management has always been important. What are some of the considerations that go into quality management?
There are a number of considerations as it relates to voice and video quality that are impacted by this current situation, and there is no question that when people are experiencing the emotional stress that that our world has been experiencing recently, that people, when they call their bank, when they are working with their colleagues, when they're talking to their manager or talking to the people who report to them, when you have call quality issues, it really does add to the stress of the environment. And so call quality is something that is as important, if not more important, in this context than right now than it is in normal operations. What we're finding around quality management, there's a number of factors that contribute to call quality that are related to this current situation. First and foremost is certainly the reliability and capacity of home networks. And I think that a lot of organizations are very quickly pointing to the obvious smoking gun, if you will, that if there's call quality issues, well, it must be the home network. What we're finding is that in many cases, the home networks, the Wi-Fi networks, and the increased load on the networks, both not only from everyone working from home, but also the young students being home, and more people using online resources during the day, is a factor for sure. There are a number of other factors as well, and one of the things that we've been helping our customers get a better handle on is understanding how their remote policies are impacting potential voice and quality, and that's voice and video quality, and that's mostly around VPN. So virtual private networks are definitely tried and true, and most organizations have set up virtual private network environments that they've been able to leverage for employees for many years. But when you all of a sudden have everyone or near everyone using those virtual private networks, you have to consider that if you're forcing the voice and video traffic through those VPN concentrators and you're experiencing quality issues, it may actually be that the VPN concentrator itself is contributing to those quality issues. And so one of the things we've been helping people to do is understand how different segments of their user population are being impacted by the VPN concentrators, taking a look at the IP address space, for example, of different concentrators and understanding which users are on which concentrators and being able to understand if they're contributing. One of the things that people forget is that voice traffic in particular is a much smaller packet size than a lot of other data traffic that's on the network passing through those concentrators. What that means is that you get many more packets, and when those packets are encrypted on a VPN, that increases the amount of processing that VPN device has to do, very significantly. So now all of a sudden you're really putting a lot of pressure on the processor of those VPN concentrators by running your so many small voice packets through them. So that's an area that we're really seeing a lot. Also, certainly around the SBC and the the PSTN, paying attention and monitoring, and then testing for capabilities to support remote users has been a big part of what we've been talking about over the last few weeks.
You mentioned the word capacity. We usually think of capacity as bandwidth, which is one part, but you're also saying that there's capacity in these VPN servers that's a problem. How do you deal with capacity management? Because we have so much traffic growth on the internet and the enterprise networks now.
Right, and a lot of this again is having to do with certain features that were designed to support work from home or remote work scenarios that are now being tested and taxed in different ways. I'll give you a great example. If you think of inbound PSTN calls, most of the major UC platform, on-premise UC platform providers have a model where an individual user can have their direct line forwarded to their cell phone if they're going to be out of the office. Avaya calls it EC500. There's been various different names for that feature from different platform providers, but the basic idea is that an outside caller calls into a published DID number, and that extension is then forwarded by the enterprise context or the enterprise call, whatever it is, their UC platform, back out to a mobile phone. Well, what ends up happening when that happens is that you use up twice the amount of capacity on your trunking. So you have the inbound original PSTN call, and then you have the internal UC platform turning around and making an outbound call across the PSTN to your mobile device. So here's something that was designed to work exactly as you would want it to in normal times, and you can develop capacity for that. But where in the past we used to say, you might consider, hey, it's not that big of a deal, it's taking up 2 trunks. Now all of a sudden you have such a high percentage of people using features like that, and every time a call comes in or out, it's taking up 2 trunks. We're seeing a lot of capacity issues on SBCs and SIP trunks and TDM trunks. So it's not just the VPNs. It's really across the whole platform. The final piece I would say is that most UC platforms offer some type of device, a server or other edge compute methodology for taking traffic that comes in over the internet. So even people who are using the soft clients from home, the way that you would if you were in the office, you're, let's say, using Skype for Business soft client, or you're using Avaya 1X soft client. If that's coming in across the internet, it's typically hitting some sort of concentrator, an edge software, and those also are not designed for having 80 to 100% of the users coming in. So that's an area where we're seeing increased interest in wanting to monitor and test what's going on there with the with those devices that are on the edge.
Now the next slide has 2 terms: registrations management and reporting and dashboards. All right, the work at home and mobile users keep changing. How does this registration management help us there? And secondly, What do we need to see for reporting on the network via health dashboards?
I'll cover registrations first. That really varies depending on which platform you're using. Avaya has a very clean sense of registration. Cisco has a very clean sense of registration. Microsoft has a slightly different approach to it. But what we're seeing is people wanting dashboards that understand how many people do I have logged in remotely? How many people do I have available to be taking calls that are coming in, and seeing how that has shifted over time. We've seen massive shifts in this just in the last 3 weeks or so. And this is obviously an incredibly timely topic, and just 3-4 weeks ago there was a small number of people that were potentially working from home, and then it's grown and grown and grown. And so UC administrators and contact center administrators have wanted to understand what percentage of their user base is registering devices from outside the network versus from within the network, and seeing how that's shifted over time. So that's been something that we've been able to expose for our customers, is help them keep track of that, which informs other decisions that they need to make around the business, but also the technology.
Does this also help me look at my history as well?
Definitely, and that's where reporting comes in. And this is something that I think people are going to first. We covered it here a little bit later on, but most of what people are really wanting right now is visibility into what's happening. People wanting to understand how their users are being impacted by this from a quality perspective, as well as understanding how their business is being impacted from a capacity perspective. So reporting is something that is always important, but we're finding that right now people are wanting to build reports that perhaps they've never really asked for before, just to be able to understand what's going on with the remote worker environments, so that the business understands, are people taking calls, are people doing the same kind of work that they used to be doing, and how does what they do from home compare to what they might have done a month ago or 2 months ago, and what is the impact on the business of how that has shifted potentially.
A lot of people working in contact centers are actually working from home, but yet the contact centers are busier than ever. What should an enterprise do to monitor and test their contact center environment?
This is an area that we obviously have a lot of experience with, but I find that it's an area that a lot of customers don't even know exists. This is a set of technology tools that people aren't aware of, and that is the ability to automatically or programmatically be testing the availability and health of your published inbound numbers, and then monitoring that and notifying you if something should go awry, and doing that from the outside. Lots of people are aware of whether or not their internal contact center call handling systems are functioning correctly, but what we have the ability to do is from the outside call a PSTN number, and we can do this in up to 80 countries around the world, where we can call a published telephone number and not only verify that it gets answered the way that you're expecting it to, but that the prompts that are presented are appropriate. Because as volumes have spiked, we've seen issues where carriers and other people involved in the delivery of that call, whether that be the over-the-top providers or others, are not able to route calls appropriately, where their actual capacity is being pushed to the limits, where call routing isn't happening the way it should be. And we had a circumstance where there was an organization on the West Coast of the United States where they were providing a social service, and they were finding that their published number was being routed to someone's personal voicemail rather than to the audio attendant that it was supposed to be. But it was very intermittent. It wasn't every call. It was very difficult for them to troubleshoot. And so by exposing this and finding the patterns and realizing how often this was happening, they were able to go back to their service provider and say, hey, look at what's happening. On this percentage of calls, you guys aren't delivering the inbound PSTN call appropriately. You're delivering it on the wrong trunk, and And so that was very helpful for them. So these are features that are always available, but right now it's something that people are wanting to learn more about.
When it comes to the collaboration environment, you divide the effort into 3 areas. What are the 3 areas and what do they mean to the audience that's listening?
We find this to be a helpful framework to have a discussion around collaboration health, and that is the health of your voice and video environment for either collaboration and contact center as well. Both are relevant. And it's really just a framework. This isn't a tool or a product that we have, but what we do when we build our products is we approach it from this framework. And if you think about it, really, every single voice or video call or session that someone has, whether there be a customer or an internal collaboration environment, really traverses these 3 domains. There's 3 distinct zones that could be contributing to the quality of that call. There's certainly the platform. This could be on premise, this could be in the cloud. It doesn't really matter. It's basically, this is the software that's setting up the call, that's managing the call, that is making the switching decisions, etc. That's the platform health, and that's critical, obviously. And then the network is transport, but also things like the SBCs and other, where there's routing decisions being made about how certain traffic gets handled, obviously contributes to the network. So that is an important domain. And then the real Wild West is how I often refer to the 3rd domain, which is the endpoint domain. Whereas this very, in the past used to be very controlled. This was a phone sitting on a desk, and that was the endpoint. Now, obviously, both in the context of modern collaboration as well as in the context of what we're dealing with now on a global basis in this current situation, is that the endpoint could be any number of different things. It could be a soft client on a wide variety of different devices and different types of network. It involves the headsets, the cameras, the desk phones, all of that gets put into the endpoint domain. So really, as a framework, this is a helpful way to look at where you've got quality issues and segment those out. And that's how we've built our tools.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much. There are resources available here from Nectar Corp, and this is the URL you should use. Thanks, Tim, again for this enlightening and tutorial session.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to be with you, and appreciate the opportunity to talk through it.